in the chat. It should be. Hello. Oh. Take it away, Dorian.
Hello and welcome, everybody. We would like to start off with a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge that the Brockton organizers do our work on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Huron-Wendat nations. More recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. And we acknowledge the ways that colonization and genocide and racism have impacted Indigenous people, and all settlers have a responsibility in making space at events like this for Indigenous voices. We all share the responsibility to critically understand and challenge forces of systemic oppression. For many of us, this includes recognition of how our ancestors as settlers has contributed to these colonial legacies with both silences and actions. It means we have to notice right now the oppressions that are happening with the governments oppressing land defenders and approving pipelines, and with the overrepresentation of Indigenous children in foster care and a host of other injustices that are happening right now in the country we live in the world that we live in. So it's incumbent on us to write our elected officials, asking them to report back on progress they've made with recommendations listed in the TRC, asking them to listen to the stewards of this land, asking them to give land back. And these important matters are everybody's responsibility, particularly those of settlers. We'd also like to acknowledge that Black Lives Matter, and that we will continue to feature and center Black and Indigenous voices, as well as other people of color, underrepresented groups, people with disabilities, LGBTQ people. All of this is included in our mandate. Thank you very much for joining us on our new Brockton Writers Series YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. I'm very excited to say that. I hear my kids YouTubers who play video games saying that all the time. So now I get to say it too. Hit those buttons, like and subscribe. Today's lineup will include a guest speaker with a brief Q&A, and then our 4 readers, followed by a group Q&A for them as well. Each presentation will be a little shorter than when we were in person, and we'll skip the break. So we should be done at around 8. Please type your questions into the YouTube chat box as they occur to you, because we will collect them and bring them to ask during the Q's and A's. It also helps us as there's a slight delay. So as soon as you think of a question, put it in that chat box. Over to you, Emily.
Brockton Writers Series was founded in November 2009, which means we've been active in the Toronto literary scene for over a decade. Our Brockton Writers Series volunteers are Jen Albert, Hannah M. DeMichael, Nancy K. Clark, Dorianne Emerton, Sonia Pathare, and I'm Emily Sanford. And we have the pleasure of working together to keep the Brockton Writers Series going. Want to join the team? You can. Check in with one of us after the readings, and we'd love to hear from you. We would like to acknowledge with deep thanks the continued support of the Ontario Arts Council, who make this series possible. And our sincere thanks to you, our audience, for being with us here tonight. Now on to Brockton's guest speaker. Nadia L. Hohn is an award-winning author, educator, and archivist who advocates or I think it's activist, who advocates for diversity in children and young adult literature. Nadia is the author of Malaika series, Malaika's Surprise, Malaika's Winter Carnival, and Malaika's Costume. Oh, artivist is correct. Good. Okay. So artivist and activist. Sure. Yeah. I love artivist. That's a great name, a great word. So all of the Malaika books, including Malaika's Costume, were illustrated by Irene Luxbacher, published by Groundwood Books. Malaika's Costume was selected as the 2021 TD Book Giveaway title, which means that over 550,000 children across Canada will receive a copy. Nadia is also the author of Harriet Tubman, Freedom Fighter, Little Miss Lou, How Jamaican Poet Louise Bennett Coverley Found Her Voice, and Music and Media in the Sankofa series. Her upcoming work includes a picture book and an anthology in 2023, as well as a picture book in 2024. Currently, she's working on middle grade and young adult novels and plays. Nadia holds a degree in honors psychology from the University of Waterloo, as well as Bachelor and Master of Education degrees from OISE at U of T. Nadia is completing her Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing at the University of Guelph. She was an inaugural teacher at Canada's first publicly funded Afrocentric school and has been an elementary school teacher for 18 years. She is a professor of writing for children at post-secondary institutions and has presented across Canada, the US, and the world. Nadia, warm welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's a pleasure. Sorry I gave you that job of reading. I didn't follow any word count limits there, but thanks so much. It's a pleasure to join all of you. Usually I am facing children when I talk about kids books, or I'm facing my students, but it's also great to talk to folks who would like to write kids books one day. So I decided that what would be a better title than writing Kidlit in a nutshell? Because 10 minutes is what we have to talk about this. And I want to make sure this takes up the whole screen. So let's just see here if it can do that. All right, I hope, can you see everything? I don't know how to do full screen on this one, but hopefully, yeah, it's good. You might just see other tabs at the top, so I do apologize. Okay, so hold on, I do want to fix this. Just one moment here. I do apologize. I'm just gonna make sure I can fix this properly. Okay, perfect. I got my full screen, so you don't have to see my tabs and nothing's cut off. So I do apologize for that little delay there. Okay, thank you for your patience. All righty. This is so much fun. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. Yay, got it. Okay, so writing Kidlit in a nutshell. I'm going to talk a little bit about everything, and then we're going to have some time afterwards for questions. Okay, so you want to write a book for young people. That's great. That's what we want. So some of the things I'd like you to think about, these are the do's of writing Kidlit. Treat it with the most respect. I feel sometimes that Kidlit doesn't get the respect it deserves, especially after adult fiction and poetry. Sometimes it just seems that, oh, you write kids books, that's so cute. Don't look at it as it's cute. It's an actual honorable endeavor. It's very noble, and it's not as easy as most people think. So treat it with that level of respect. Know your book will be loved and appreciated by children and young adults for years to come. So I'm really excited to know that, for example, my book, Malaika's Costume, that came out in 2016, it was selected for the TD Book Giveaway, but also it was afloat in the Santa Claus Parade. And this is a book I wrote in 2010. and it came out in 2016. So the great thing about kids books, they have a long life, and if you hit that note, it can be enjoyed for many years to come. Also, it's important to know your age groupings. So you don't want to create a book and say this book is great for ages 4 to 12. That's a huge age range with many different developmental levels. So it's very important to understand what the kids at each of those age groups would be dealing with. When you say 4 to 12, that's basically 3 separate age groups when you think of it in the book Kidlit category. So do some reading about that. Have more fun than you expected. It's a lot of fun to write for kids. I thoroughly enjoy it and think it's the most awesome genre in the world. 2 things you'll need to remember. Writing a kid's book is not for dummies, so don't downplay it. You're doing something honorable. So unless you're reading the book, Writing Kidlit for Dummies, okay? Because that book does exist. And then treat it like writing for most genres. You're still going to need to do drafts. You're still going to need to do research, and it's going to take time. 3 R's. I treated a little bit here. So read, write, repeat, and share. So you want to read all kinds of children and young adult books, as many as you can. I recommend reading at least 100 books, especially books that are similar in format to the one that you want to write. You can find books by looking at bestseller lists, award nominations, winners, childhood favorites. You could talk to people, follow favorite authors and illustrators on social media and see what they're coming out with next, and get used to children youth culture. So you may want to watch some Disney movies, for example, or kids shows, just to get a sense. I'm actually a teacher, so I've been teaching and working with kids for most of my life, so I have an advantage. And if you have your children, you definitely have an advantage as well, but you want to learn a bit more about your age grouping. Write. You need to write as much as you can. I don't write every single day. I do write most days, and I don't always write Kidlit. So I journal, I do all kinds of writing. I write articles, I write different things. So I like to believe that everything, your life experience lends to what you write. And even if you don't have a full story yet, you can just put together like a phrase or a couple jot points that you can come back to and fill in later. You can also look at the style of writing of one of your favorite authors and look at some of the strategies they use and try them out. You're not plagiarizing, you're not copying, but try out a style in your own words, of course, to see how it works for you. And then repeat. You're going to be writing a lot of drafts, just like you would with any other genre. It's not necessarily a fast journey. My book, A Little Miss Lou, for example, it was a 7-year journey. As I mentioned, I wrote Malika's costume in 2010, and it didn't become a book till 2016. So if you're planning to go to the traditional route, it will take longer. If you are planning to self-publish, it is a faster route, but you do have other challenges as well. So if you want to learn more about that, follow some self-published authors that you can learn from, and just keep abreast that some of the workshops that are out there. And yeah, take your breaks as needed. If you need to leave a story, you can always come back to it later and add to it. And lastly is share. Send your stories out. I sat on my stories for a long time. Malika's costume sat on my desktop for a few years because I didn't feel confident about sending it out. I didn't know there was room for my story. I didn't know if I was good enough writer, but just try to get your stories out. Talk to publishers. If you can, go to conferences, go take a course. I know we're a bit limited with the lockdown situation, but there's certainly online courses. I teach online. There are a few institutions in the city, the GTA, that do great writing for children courses. I took my courses at George Brown College at night. I also teach at the University of Toronto School for Continuing Studies, as well as Centennial College, and I've taught a course at the Open University at Guelph. So there are different institutions that maybe they don't offer like a degree program in writing for kids, but you can take a course here or there, or a conference. You can also join an association. There are a few of them. There's SEBWI, there's CANSCAPE, that's CANSCAIP. There are other organizations, the Writers Union as well, that they put on different workshops sometimes, or different sessions of writing for young people. And you can just learn as much as you can. And of course, if you follow your favorite authors, sometimes they are doing like what I do, which is leading a session. And you can get as much information and network. My success came from networking. I actually will be presenting about how to do a writing career without an agent. I do have an agent now, but I've negotiated my 10 book contracts, the 7 here plus the 3 forthcoming without an agent, and found them as well. So it's something that you're going to, you could get it, you can get an agent right away. Some folks are doing that as well, but you want to share your story, because I like to believe that it's a disservice to the world if you don't do that, if you don't share that story, because a child out there needs to hear it. And definitely join us. I find the Kidlit community is very, very friendly, and most people, I say very friendly, amazing, very humble, and I just had a lot of opportunities to interact with some wonderful people in the Kidlit community. And we're going to do questions in a few moments, but I would love to hear from you. I'm very active on social media. I do have a website, Nadia, LHOHN, Hohn.com. You could also contact me through my website. I'm on Instagram, Nadia L Hohn _author, on Twitter, Nadia LHOHN. I also have a YouTube channel as well, and check out my courses. I announce my courses on my social media when I am teaching. And thank you. And I look forward to hearing any questions. And I'd love to find out, Emily, how did I do for time? Good.
We're doing great for time. So if you want to just post your questions in the YouTube chat, they will come to us slowly, and I'll read them out. And we do have one for you already, Nadia. So the first one is, do you have a sense about whether the bulk of picture and middle grade books are consumed as print or ebooks?
Okay, so that's a great question. Certainly ebooks are available, like all my books are on ebook, and for most books that are being published now, they're available on ebook. And certainly they have uses, but generally speaking, kids' books are actual physical kids' book aren't in competition with ebooks, because most kids still enjoy the experience of turning the page and having a physical book in their hands. But as a teacher, I do teach as well. So I know that there are a couple of software programs that are actually having ebooks available in the classroom, where, you know, I don't know if you remember back in the day, if you were, especially in the Canadian school system, you had leveled readers. They're able to put all that stuff online now on iPads and different devices and tablets. So kids are able to actually read and interact with those books online, digitally, basically. Thank you for that question.
That's so great. I remember the teacher would have a giant version of Brown Bear, for example. Yes. And we would all get these little mini versions too.
Yes.
So ebooks are a much more technologically advanced version of
that. And you know, those big books you're talking about, they still exist, but they're not as easy to come by. Like I know, they're kind of pricey too. So you know,
I imagine.
Yeah. So yeah, those were the days, right?
So we have another question. Is there a difference between books that the parents want their kids to read and what the kids want to read?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, okay. The thing is that generally speaking, the people buying the books are the parents, right? Until the kids are able to afford the books themselves, they are, as the parents, the caregivers, the teachers, they're gatekeepers. So we want to appeal, right? But there are a couple, there's the educational market, then there's the the word consumer. I want to say consumer market, but that's not the word. Trade. That's it. So there are two markets, right? Trade is everyone else, everything else. And then within the trade, there are different markets as well. My books, the ones that I have here at least, they wouldn't be teachers and librarians adore my books. Parents like my books. Kids, they I would say, like, for example, they have Captain Underpants. Think the higher commercial books, right? So there's the books that kids are gonna know about buzz. It's not that they won't like my books. They love my books. I know because I've I've tested them out. Kids they do like it. But in terms of you're thinking about the the Captain Underpants, the ones that like the SpongeBob, like the ones that are getting that extra commercial piece, sometimes those are the ones that the kids gravitate towards as well, right? But I get messages all the time. Parents say, I love your book. My child keeps asking for your book. So it's just, I guess you want to go into the mind of a salesperson and how they're going to market your book. That's it. It doesn't mean your book doesn't have relevance. It just means that it's a different marketing strategy, and I guess the gatekeeper, the buyer, is going to be slightly different. Yeah.
Kind of like pizza and hot dogs for dinner.
Yeah, and if you grew up in
they're going to want the famous.
Yeah, and if you grew up in Canada, you might be familiar with, and especially the US as well, the Scholastic Book Fair. So there are a lot of highly commercial, more mainstream books there, but there also, some of my books are in that fair too, right? So it's how they are marketing and seeing the opportunity for kids to engage with those books.
Very interesting to think about it in terms of the gatekeepers. The actual consumer of the product is different than the person gatekeeping or with the purchasing power. Okay, right. So next we have.
And sorry, and I was going to say, and that's one of the differences with adults books, right? Because it's the adult who buys it for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so next we have, thank you for sharing. I'd love to hear about your experience querying publishers without an agent. How many did you send out?
Okay, that's a good question. And I hope I don't get haters, because it was a very different experience for me. I did hear a lot of people say, oh, I sent out my manuscript to 100 publishers or 80 publishers, whatnot. And I thought that was going to be my experience. So I got very intimidated and nervous. I thought that's what it would look like for me. But I found, like the way I said, networking really helped me. I met my publisher at a workshop at a different booklist bookstore in 2011. And there was only like 5 of us in the audience. So I got to talk to her, ask her questions, get her business card, and then sent her an email. And we kept in touch. And then that's how Malika's costume came about. But when I sent the manuscript off to her, I actually sent it to another publisher. And that was through somebody who knew somebody who worked in a publishing house. So it was those kind of connections. And I said to myself, if I send it to both of them and they both say no, then I will submit it to the slush pile. And then if nobody says yes, I will self-publish. And that's how I went about it. But everybody's story is different. A lot of people go for an agent right away. When I was doing the submissions, this is 2013, and I'd say that things have changed a lot. In Canada, you don't need an agent, especially in Kidlit, but it is changing. A lot more authors are getting agents now and trying to get better deals, not having to deal with the hassle of negotiating a contract. Those are all reasons why people like to get agents. And I wouldn't say now, but I go to like so many conferences. I'd be going to conferences in the US and Canada. So it's just constantly networking, meeting a lot of people. I met this book is with HarperCollins. I met that editor at a cocktail party at a conference. And then it's just a lot of networking. And sometimes like for these 2 books, media and music, those were writer for hire books. And an author was approached to write them and she couldn't do it. So she gave them my name, and that's how I was able to write these books. So again, the networking is very, very helpful. And sometimes when your name gets out with other projects, then you get approached for other things like I got contacted by a magazine, can you write this kid's story? And that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So it's spaces even like this one when we're in person is a little easier, but spaces just like this one, and luckily we're networking, which really just means chatting with people who are generally really nice.
Yeah.
So we're lucky to be in this industry, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we have a question. I think we already answered, how did you find your publisher, or did they find you? There's a little bit of both in there. But the next question is, what has surprised you most about writing for kids?
What has surprised me most? I think that I don't get tired of it. I love this so much. It's really what I feel like I was born to do. I used to make picture books as a child, but I didn't know that I could have made any kind of living at it. And I was writing all the time. I write for my school papers, for high school, college, university papers, and I didn't really know about that possibility of that next level. I thought it was those people over there that do that, and I certainly didn't see books that were written with Caribbean patois in it as a child. Books where characters look like me and are based in Canada. So I was also I was writing into something that I hadn't, that I knew could be possible. And thankfully I had access through my library books, diverse books in the US. And certainly they've grown a lot as well in the last number of years, but I had access to books by Black authors. So I had a hunger and a need, and I certainly had a model, but I didn't really know. I didn't know this would all be possible. Like, this is certainly a dream. This is certainly a dream. Yeah. So it's so I guess what surprised me was just that I did it. That's as simple as, like, I did it. All things considered, I did it, and now I keep doing it, and I enjoy it, and I'm trying to make it possible so others can do this too.
That's wonderful. Wow. That's just such a really great, first of all, great question and a great way to answer it. Is great, great to hear that. So just in case you won't be around for the end of our Q&A with the other writers, one of the things that we do usually ask is, what's one book that you really recommend, that you've read that really just kind of influenced you lately, or that's something that you just can't forget about, or something that made you laugh a lot? Can you make a book recommendation for us?
Oh my goodness. I actually have returned to my yearly goal. I usually set a goal of how many books to read a year. And I have to say that the lockdown kind of like smashed that, because it was hard to get to libraries and so forth. So I started again. So 100 books is my goal. And I've actually read Sula by Toni Morrison last week. Listened to it, and I'm listening to Song of Solomon, and I'm just like, I think now at this point, because I'm doing my MFA, and I don't know if it's because of that or whatever, having met so many authors, but now I have this really sincere, deeper appreciation for her writing and the beauty of the words and how they go together, and how easy her reading style is, and I just like so much artistry that I can learn from. So I have to say that. And oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I haven't read, I need to do some more reading of young adult books, but there's so many great authors, and I'm really looking forward to two Canadian ones that pop in my mind right now. SKLE, she's a friend, but she's also an amazing author of young adult books, focusing on like Muslim teens, and she writes great romance, YA romance, and also Janice Lynn Mather, who is based in BC, and she just came out. CBC did a story about her short story collection that just came out this year, but she has won. I believe she won a GG, or she was nominated for a GG. She won last year Best Young Adult Book Amy Mathers Award. Through the TD Children's Book Award. So I'm really excited about the future of diverse, vibrant books for young people that are being published in Canada or written by Canadian authors.
Here, here. All right. So SKLE and Janice Lynn Mather as well. Nadia, thank you so much.
Thank you. And please stay in touch. I look forward to hearing from you. And I should stick, I'll kind of pop in and out. So see you soon. Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I have a 9-year-old, so we're recently moved on to more middle grade, some YA books. And it's been really interesting to see what's out there and what I, as a parent, gatekeep, as you put it. You know, we read Harry Potter, but by the time we were done Harry Potter, we didn't want to support Harry Potter anymore. And I was like, how do I move him away from this? Yeah. So now is where I take another chance to exhort you, the audience, to subscribe to this channel. We need at least 100 subscribers to get our own customized URL. Up until now, we've been kind of piggybacking on Ephemera's YouTube, but now we have our own, and we would love it if you could be one of those 100 and get us our customized URL. And usually if we were at this point in person, we would hand around a picture and try and get your pay what you can donations. But you can't really pass around a picture through Zoom. So we have set up a PayPal account. You'll be able to see that in the comments. It's paypal.me Brockton Writers. If you could spare a few dollars for our writers, that would be much appreciated. We'd also love it if you could fill out our survey to suggest topics for future guest speakers, topics or actual guest speakers. We want to know what you want to hear from us. So please take our very brief survey. That will also put that in the chat and let us know your thoughts. We are here for you. And now to the readers. Once again, please type your questions in the chat as they occur to you. There's a bit of a delay and we'll collect them all and put all of the readers on screen at the end and ask them your questions. So first up is Jane Woods, who was born, oh, I get a very short bio to read. Thanks, Jane. Jane Woods was born in Cleveland, Ohio. She grew up in Montreal and is a graduate of the National Theatre School of Canada. She has worked extensively as a voice actor and a translator. She lives in Toronto.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, this is the book. It's called Running Downhill Like Water. Nice musical cover. And just a few opening remarks about the reading. Running Downhill Like Water is made up of 4 interlocking stories dealing with 4 characters who have each lost the one thing they thought they could not possibly live without. One of those characters is Evan, an actor whose career is on the skids, not least owing to the fact that he's chosen to devote nearly all of his time and energy to the care of his mentally ill brother, Neil. And at 46 years old, he's also beginning to realize that the much younger woman with whom he's been desperately in love for the last 1.5 years, the first and only romantic relationship he's ever had, has finally become sick and tired of his lack of ambition, his general timidity, and his unshakable devotion to his loser of a brother. A 2-volt battery's worth. That's how much Rivka loves him now. He cringes to remember her 3 nights ago, bundling her big purse to her chest, throwing open the passenger side door of his car, spitting, "You give me such a sharp pain in the ass. Really, I can't even deal." Slam. Stepping lively down Sherbrooke all the way to her block, careless, bared arms exposed to the March winds, shiny hair swinging, not thinking once of looking back before turning right and out of sight. He'd snuffled and blubbered for the entire hour-long drive back to St. Clemence, vowing that he would fix it. He would change. He would try harder to be who she wanted him to be. Stiffen his spine. Be a man, for God's sake. No, for Christ's sake. He was no wuss. He could take the famous name in vain. Why not? There. You hear that? I'm sorry. Don't be mad, Lord. Oh, such a stupid, stupid fight it had been about chicken. Rivka, just back from a week-long film gig in Toronto, her first out-of-town job in 4 months. She hadn't phoned or texted all week, which boded ill. On earlier work trips, she'd FaceTimed him twice a day, bursting with showbiz anecdotes and salacious gossip, never going to sleep without calling to say goodnight, to tell him how much she loved and missed him. But it had been a big film, and she'd been coaching major actors on difficult accents. She'd probably never had a spare minute. So pumped had she been to get the gig after a long fallow period, so anxious to make a great impression. Understanding this, he should have begun drawing her out the moment they sat down in the restaurant. What was Matt Damon like to work with? And Emily, what's her name? How was she? Any new work opportunities on the horizon? But from the jump, her mood had been unaccountably spiky, throwing him off his game and into regression mode. We're going to do the grilled sesame chicken, she told the waiter, ordering for him as she liked to do, as he'd always let her do. But when his plate came, after a long, miserable spate of silence, it was the wrong thing. It was tuna. Evan loathed tuna, loathed all fish, never mind the warm concerns he entertained for the plight of dolphins. But when the offending dish had been set before him, he'd only blinked and sighed. Tell them. Rivka had leaned across the table, her eyes incendiary, last straws bursting into flame within her. Hey, no biggie, an expression he'd gotten from her friends that he wanted to punch himself in the mouth for using. Tell them, louder this time. Why are you letting them push you around? You have a right to what you asked for, tell them. Neighboring diners were now glancing their way. Evan, who with every steaming cell of his body did not want to tell them, had no choice but to gesture in a foppy way to the passing waiter, swallowing the glob of fear in his throat to whisper kindly, I'm sorry, I know you're really busy, but I think I got the wrong thing. The waiter bunching up his eyebrows, claiming that no mistake had been made. You asked for tuna, dude. Evan had backed down immediately. Sorry. Anyway, it's fine. My bad. Yet another secondhand expression he picked up from Rivka's pals that made him feel like some smarmy smoothie on The Bachelor. Well, if that isn't some sad bullshit right there. Rivka had sat back in her chair, grilled chicken untouched, sharp eyes boring into him as he took small, unhappy bites. Extreme anger did her face no favors, transposing her elongated Modigliani features dangerously close to Afghan hound territory. 5 more minutes of Arctic silence. Then she banged her fist on the table, making the wine glasses hop, ordered him to march his ass straight to the kitchen and demand his rights as a paying customer. He put down his fork, heart bobbing in a sea of nausea. It's okay, I really don't mind. Gagging down another forkful. It's not that bad. It was really hard to swallow with her seething at him. This, he knew full well, had nothing to do with chicken or tuna. This was cumulative. You're getting fucked over. She meant by the waiter, of course, but the subtext clearly referenced his brother. His whole life, and hers along with it, was getting well and truly fucked over thanks to Evan's appalling gutlessness by Neil. He'd hung his head, all his circuits jammed, unable to offer a defense, which just made her wilder. Find out who's responsible and demand that the problem be fixed. What is wrong with you? She was out of her chair then. Hey, snapping her fingers to get the waiter's attention. Oh, leave him alone, Evan had pleaded. Please, if he made a mistake, what if his mother died this morning? Or, oh, come on, Riv, I hate harassing people. The P in people inching perilously toward the flashing neon sign of total, irredeemable retrogression. Evan, They're sticking it to you. Sack up, dude, because if I have to take care of it, she'd had to take care of it. Flipping her glossy burnt umber hair over the shoulder bared by her spider silk sweater, clomping through the saloon doors into the kitchen in her mustard Louboutin boots, the doors still going womp womp behind her, her voice scaling majestic heights. As for 10 unbroken minutes, she could be heard getting all kinds of things off her chest, denouncing everything from the doltishness of their waiter to the voracious greed and incompetence of the food service sector of the economy. All talk in the dining room had ceased, forks held in midair, rapt attention and delight marking every face. They would have escorted anyone else out by one ear, but Rivka was so beautiful. In the end, she got Evan, who could no longer swallow so much as a sprig of parsley, his grilled chicken. She also scored 2 free drinks, which they poured up for her at the bar, all apologies and fawning smiles. Oh, look, people, she cried, spinning around in mock excitement, holding the 2 flutes of champagne aloft in her silver-ringed hands. We are getting drinks. The announcement was met with warm applause. Everyone was on her side. Everyone always was. She'd taken her seat, downed her glass in one long pull, then drunk his, sat back, complained, I'm hot, shrugged off her cobweb sweater, under which she wore a pale pink satin camisole. Men, women at other tables eyed her taut ballerina body. Rivka knew she was being looked at, appraised, love-hated. She took it well. Yes, you are. Hot. His mortified stab at a joke. No smile back. He'd gagged down a few bites of his chicken, which was cold. Perhaps best not to mention that. Yes, another date night and even worse shambles than usual. Bad enough that that's what they'd been reduced to, trying to crank up enthusiasm for increasingly queasy dinners out. Sticking to safe topics, prefab conversations, always geared to her interests, her vision of their future. For several months now, the temperature steadily dropping, Rivka never letting him finish his sentence, repeating his words as he was still speaking them, a half step behind, ending with a vehement nod, a got it, got it, got it, as if she'd learned all his lines the night before. It would do no good to hang his abject head and iterate for the 1000th time his profound reluctance to bother people. But he'd pushed his chicken plate aside, hung his head anyway, mumbled softly, you know I can't take sides in arguments. Everyone always seems to be right when I look at things from their angle. Her scowl blackening. I just hate seeing people's faces fall. It feels like violence. He had a couple of endearing childhood anecdotes on the back burner. The time he'd apologized in tears to the rabbit in his coloring book, whose jaunty little cap he'd inadvertently ripped by bearing down too hard with the crayon. The time he'd apologized to one of Louisa's cookbooks, when that good woman had sneered at one of the recipes, so hopefully photographed, presented with such pride. Stop talking, Rivka had snapped. So he had. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do I turn
so
myself
much,
off
Jane.
now?
Yes, you can
Okay.
put yourself on mute, but that was wonderful. Really enjoyed that reading. Thank you so much. Next, we have Hollay Ghadery, who is a writer living in rural Ontario on Anishinaabe land. She has her MFA in creative writing from the University of Guelph. Her fiction, nonfiction, and poetry have been published in various literary journals, including the Malahat Review, Room, Understory, Carousel, the Antigonish Review, Grain, and the Fiddlehead. Her debut collection of poetry, Rebellion Box, is set to be released by Radiant Press in spring 2023, and Fuse, her memoir of mixed race identity and mental health, was released by Guernica Editions' Miroland imprint in spring 2021. Hollay, welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's so good to be here. That was absolutely delightful, Jane. Thank you so much. I was laughing and maybe seeing myself a little too much in that character, so it stung a bit. I loved it. I loved it. It was so wonderful. So I'm at the mercy of the rural wave gods right now. So I might read a little scooch less than 10 minutes just because I live out in the middle of nowhere in a 171-year-old house. So everything goes wrong all the time. I also have 4 kids under 11 running around trying to be quiet. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to be reading from the first full chapter of my memoir, Fuse, which I'm really grateful to Garnica for taking a chance on. It's called Waiting for Wonder Woman, and just a little bit of a content warning. I don't think I'm going to get too far into this, but there is some mention of my struggles with eating disorders. So that's where I'm starting. Nice light topic. So Waiting for Wonder Woman. See what I mean? The only way in is around. But Nuala doesn't see. She's hopping from foot to foot, as if the ground is on fire. She's hot. It is hot. The parking lot is a sprawl of swollen concrete and asphalt. We're going to a movie, and I've realized too late that I parked on the wrong side of the huge multiplex theater. We have to walk on the other side of the building to get to the entrance. Nuala tugs on my arm. Can you carry me? What's wrong with your legs? She lets her body melt forward. She pulls at the shoulders of her puffed pink taffeta dress. Mommy! What she wants to say is that her dress is stifling and itchy, which I told her it would be, but she insisted on wearing it. What she does say is, this is taking so long. Nuala is 5. And when you're little, there's little of your life that's yours to control. So much is decided for you. In the absence of prescience, a great many things can feel like they're taking too long. We're almost there, I say. The greasy smack from the theater's dumpsters hits us. She crinkles her nose, which emphasizes its pixie upturn. I offer her my hand. Hold. Nuala laces her fingers through mine and brings our hands to her eye level. She squints, her eyelashes like gold tinsel throwing light. Your skin is darker than mine. Mm-hmm. But not by much. No, not by much. I know where this is going. She peers more closely at her intertwined fingers. We've had this conversation before in different incarnations. Nuala wants proof that she's mine. And I have long hair, she says, dropping her hands from in front of her face. I have long hair like you. Yes, like me, but blonde. As she says this, she frowns. Yes, blonde, I confirm, trying to run my fingers through her hair, but getting them snagged in knots. It's beautiful. But long like yours. She's asking for assurance because she's afraid, long exactly like mine. She's afraid she doesn't belong to me. This is what she has said. Everyone tells her she doesn't look a thing like me, and it scares her. When I was Nuala's age, I didn't look much like my mother either. I've told Nuala this, but still she worries. My mum's appearance. Gray blue eyes, auburn hair, gap-toothed smile, soft peach fuzz skin, wide face. Mine, coarser, darker, much darker. I didn't look like my mom, but it didn't cause me distress. I look like Daddy, Nuala says, like you look like your daddy. Yes, I look more like my father. Prominent Persian nose, old face, wide smile, thick skin. More, but not the same. I'm lighter than my dad. My mother's British Isles background diluted my father's Iranian looks. My hazel eyes to his chestnut, my hair the color of molasses and kerosene to his dark as coal. My deep olive skin to his Lut Desert tan. Nuala starts swinging my arm as we walk, pulling it jerkily back and forth. It's partly out of play, and in part to remind me how uncomfortable she is in this heat. We round the building and are met with a 5-story poster of Wonder Woman, a tower of gloss. Nuala looks up, shielding her eyes against the glare of the photo with her hand. Our arms swing to a stop. There she is, she says, nodding her head towards the image. I take a deep breath in. I grew into looking like my mother. At certain points in our lives, we've looked incredibly similar, but we've never looked the same at the same time. Still, if you had a picture of us both at an identical age, say the age I am now, me 36 and her at 36, you'd notice something similar about the way we hold ourselves that affected ease. Both of us have had a few kids, are paying down mortgages and working part-time from home. My mom as a seamstress and me as a freelance writer. In the photo of my mom, she's standing on a silk Persian rug, wearing a belted, shoulder-padded, mid-length Alice blue dress, black pumps, and chunky 24-karat gold jewelry my dad has brought back from business trips to Hong Kong. Her short hair has been freshly dyed in a deep red, curled and sprayed into a tight coif. She's smiling self-consciously, a smile that's toothy but not open. It's 1987. In the picture of me, I'm wearing a cheap pearl knot necklace from Joe Fresh and a black racer tank top. I'm sitting at a table in a restaurant. You can't see that I'm wearing skinny jeans, but I am. They're blue and distressed. I'm probably wearing flip-flops too. My hair is long enough to extend beyond the periphery of the picture. It's not dyed, but it's growing lighter with age. It's becoming streaked with white. Not that you can notice that in the picture. You'd have to get close, and I'm probably not going to let you do that because I'm over smiling with my famous guy's smiley grin. It means get back. It means I'm defending myself against the suspicion that this picture is going to make me look unintentionally stupid. So I'll make sure that I look stupid on purpose. Smile big, say cheese. Now take both of these pictures and put them side by side. You'll see the same arched brows, high cheekbones, and almond-shaped eyes. You'll see that one way or another, we're both holding back. Nuala's pulling at my arm again, trying to move me in the direction of the theater entrance. Is Nana here already? She asks, as we cross the final stretch of concrete. I've forgotten to text my mother to let her know we're running late. PST, we call it, Persian Standard Time. I fish my phone out of my purse and realize she's already texted 3 times. She's waiting at the box office. Nuala and I see her once we're through the doors and our eyes have adjusted from the light outside. My mum waves, mouth set in a crisp line, showing her disapproval for me. Nuala bounces over to her, dress billowing up and down with each bound. Nana, she squeals, collapsing around my mum's legs, smiles for Nuala. That, my mother explained, is an Amazon. Amazons were a tribe of women warriors in Greek mythology. I was 9 years old, standing in the stairwell of my grandfather's cottage and staring at a painting of a woman with burnt caramel skin. She was posed against a blood-red backdrop. The painting had been on the wall for as long as I'd been alive, but I only noticed it then. I don't know how or why these awakenings happen to us when they do, but suddenly she was there, full, familiar, and foreign, all at once. I was transfixed, rooted in an amber wedge of afternoon, thick and sweet as my grandfather's jars of lilac honey. This was where my mum found me on her way upstairs to get dry towels for my brother. She had her popsicle beach towels folded over her arm, the ones we got by collecting popsicle sticks. We would save our sticks until we earned enough points to redeem them for prizes. My brothers were still swimming in the lake with my cousins. I could hear their shrieks of laughter through the open window at the top of the stairs, along with the hum of bees and the crickets, the pleasant pulsing heat and the waves lapping against the side of my grandfather's old green boathouse, which was beginning to slouch into the lake. One of her breasts is removed because this would make it easier for her to use her bow, my mum continued, pointing at the Amazon's chest, and then to her arm, which was pulled back at full draw on her arrow. I unconsciously brought my hand to my chest and twisted my skin through my shirt. There was enough of it, skin and chicken cutlet fat, enough to signal the beginning of that pudgy pubescent stage that many girls transition into, and some never come out of, not really. I twisted harder and shielded my eyes, and my eyes widened. Still, I couldn't seem to open them enough to take in the picture. Her black hair, a brass headband, a leather wrist cuff. She was all sinew, form, and focus. She was bulk and beauty and fearlessness. The skirt of her short dress cupped her round buttocks, pulling tight over her wide hips. One thick leg was positioned behind the other, taut, unmovable. I tried to imagine her pain, strength, and beauty existing together like that. Do they still exist? I looked up at my mother. The Amazons? She raised an eyebrow. I nodded. I'm not sure. The hand that had been clutching my chest fell to my side. The other reached out to trace the Amazon's aquiline nose, her elbow. Sun from the windows started to pick up the reflections of light in the paint. Her skin seemed to prickle. The muscles in her draw arm tensed. My mum stroked my hair. I'm not sure they ever did exist. My first sighting of Hollywood's latest Amazon Wonder Woman was on a can of Diet Dr. Pepper. My husband Matthew and I were out for lunch and I pointed to the can. My parents had the kids for a sleepover, and we used the opportunity to do some child-free grocery shopping and grab a meal. Who the hell is this supposed to be? I held up my drink and pointed at the slim woman clutching the sword and shield. Matthew glanced up from unwrapping his barbecue steak pita. Instead of answering, he offered information. Did you know that her costume was so tight she couldn't breathe? But she didn't want to say anything, so she just, suffered until someone in costume noticed. Where did you hear that? It was unlike Matthew to know anything about celebrity culture. It was a news story that someone on Facebook shared. I thought of you. Is it true? I guess so. He scratched his beard, leaving barbecue sauce in the whiskers. It sounded like it might be true, but I didn't click through to read the whole article. He bit into his pita and more barbecue sauce squirted out onto the end of the table. He wiped it up with a napkin and tossed it into a can on the other side of the table. That's recycling, I said. Shit. While he was retrieving the napkin, I Googled the interview on my phone. Wonder Woman costume too tight for actor. It was true enough. I couldn't breathe. Gal Gadot admits her Wonder Woman costume was too tight until she started her regular workout routine. I searched for more pictures of this Hollywood Wonder Woman and had to blink the images in slowly, one at a time. She was nothing like the Amazon in my grandfather's stairwell. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. Again, everybody put your questions in the comments and we can ask all of these wonderful authors your questions at the end. Next up, we have Becky Blake, a two-time winner of the CBC Literary Prize. Wow. Her stories and essays have appeared in publications across Canada. Her debut novel was published by Woolsey & Wynne in 2019, and she is currently working on a second novel and a memoir and essays. Becky?
Thanks, Dorianne, and thanks to all the folks who volunteer at Brockton for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and to read with these other folks tonight. I'm going to read from my memoir in stories, which is also a memoir in progress. And I think it's the first time that I'm reading from this work, so that's exciting for me. And this piece, I decided to choose a piece that's kind of in the middle, and it's a chapter that weaves together some of my story with some of my grandparents' story. And my part of the story takes place in January 2002. So it's kind of the 20-year anniversary of that part of the story right now. So I thought I would pick this for tonight. And this chapter is called Triple Diamonds. Oh, what the hell, I'll just go. I write this in my journal on the day I decide to move from Toronto to Halifax in the dead of winter with my new painter boyfriend. Am I sure about this relationship? No, but it's still early days for us, and maybe that's why I can't tell what part of my fear is risk aversion and what part is justified, or what part of my love is actual and what part is aspirational. Will we get married? Will we have a baby? Our future is a coin toss, but one thing is certain. For as long as we're together, there will be art in our lives. Jack will paint and I will write. Our closest artist friends donate pieces to an auction that raises funds for our move. And we use some of this money to rent a U-Haul trailer and the rest of it to buy a couch and 2 chairs from a thrift store when we arrive. Our Halifax apartment is in a brown, high-rise building at the top of the steep hill that leads down to Jack's art school in the harbor. From our 4th floor balcony, I can see the Atlantic Ocean, a blue tightrope stretching between 2 office towers. Many days, a rainbow also hovers between these towers as though we have relocated to a place that's idyllic and blessed. If this move is a gamble, I have a hunch it's going to pay off. My grandfather was a gambling man. He loved going to horse races and casinos. He had longish hair that was slicked back with Brill cream, and he smoked Colt's rum-flavored wine-dipped cigarillos. He had a slow manner of talking and a quiet laugh that made his shoulders bounce up and down. He worked in a salt mine under Lake Huron and ate his ice cream with salted peanuts on top. Whenever he went to Atlantic City, he brought back saltwater taffy for his grandkids. To me, those fruity squares wrapped in wax paper tasted like they had a bit of the Atlantic Ocean in them. And by the time I finished eating them, I always felt like I had a bit of the ocean sloshing around in me. My grandpa's parents were gamblers too, selling illegal Irish sweepstakes tickets from their feed store and heading to the track on Sundays. So gambling was always in my grandpa's blood, which means it's sloshing around in my blood too. Each morning of my new Halifax life, I sit at a desk in our sun-bright living room trying to make some progress on my writing. Jack has been assigned an art studio at school, but he prefers to paint at home and has covered the living room floor with plastic to protect the carpet from splatters. Our creative processes often overlap and can feel claustrophobic. Jack likes to listen to CBC radio while he works, or sometimes while he just lies on the floor with his eyes closed. Thinking is a big part of an artist's work, he says. Most people don't realize that. At first, I feel like I may be one of the ignorant people he's talking about, but then I notice that some days when I'm trying to write, a hurdle of thought needs to be cleared before any words will come. On one of these mornings, I make a list of 106 pivotal stories from my life that I might like to include in the autobiographical novel I'm working on. Or maybe someday I'll write a memoir, if I'm lucky enough to make it as a writer. I've always felt lucky anytime I get a small opportunity to write, but Jack argues that we are not lucky. Instead, we are doing important work to create something vital and valuable. Producing art from nothing is not alchemy or magic, but the result of a particular blend of curiosity, sensitivity, patience, hard work, and dedication. Jack's passionate rhetoric always makes me feel better about the choice I've made to leave my job and all financial security to come here. His prolific output also inspires me. New paintings fill and then overflow our apartment's walls, and I commit to writing every day for as long as possible. When I can't sit still anymore and need to get out of the apartment, I struggle to think of things to do in our new city. Usually I just run errands, going out to pick up groceries for dinner or library books or a pack of cigarettes. To get to the shops downtown, I can bundle up in my Arctic grade parka and slide my way down an icy hill, or I can take the pedway, a series of pedestrian tunnels and windowed skywalks that connect my apartment building to many places in the city's core. Choosing this indoor option, I don't need to wear a coat at all. Each day I explore further and further along these walkways, entering office building foyers and malls with Muzak, feeling like a curious mouse in a mostly beige maze. One day I come to a skywalk that dead ends at the glitzy entrance to a casino. It looks like a shiny pot of gold. Perhaps this is where the rainbow from outside our window ends. I stand looking at the doors for a long moment and then turn around and head back the other way. It is not a good idea for me to go in there. I was 6 or 7 the first time I gambled. My grandpa and dad took me to the track and let me make a $2 bet. I chose a horse, which I can only guess had a name I liked, and my dad placed the bet for me at the wicket. I remember standing at the railing as the horses thundered by, pulling their drivers in little carts, how I shouted my encouragement, a vocal tether connecting me to my horse, which I could distinguish by the numbered blanket it wore. My horse and I were going to win, I felt sure of it. And then it happened, we won. I turned to my dad, already making plans for my fortune. How many books would I be able to buy? Maybe I could buy a whole library. When we went to cash out, my dad tucked a pair of dollar bills into his wallet and then placed one thin dime into my outstretched palm. Even though I knew nickels and pennies were technically worth less, that dime seemed like the smallest thing he could possibly have given me. That's it? I asked. My dad gave me one of those smiles that meant he was about to teach me something. Well, he said, I loaned you the $2 to make the bet, so after you paid me back, yes, that's what's left. If we'd bet on the horse to win, it would have paid out more, but we only bet on it to show. I nearly flicked the dime into the dirt. You didn't tell me that, I sulked. In future, I would always bet on my horse to win. In Halifax, the winter weather is ferocious. I wake each night to the howl of gale force winds whipping at our building. Our balcony fills with snow that blows skyward in angry swirls. In the morning, I hear the scrape of a snow shovel on the sidewalk. From 4 floors up, it sounds like someone is methodically cutting into a sheet of construction paper with children's scissors. Jack says he gets blue in February and that he's never going to spend another winter in Canada. I wonder if that means I won't either. Things between us have been a bit off. In Toronto, Jack and I were intense together in ways that felt romantic, staying up late arguing about books, gifting each other with frequent sketches and poems, and cooking elaborate messy meals. Here, we are intense in ways that seem to clash, neither of us willing to budge about when we want to work or sleep or what we want to eat or listen to on the radio. I hope the tension between us is temporary and that we'll find a way to reconnect. But for the moment, we have pretty much stopped talking about things we might do together in the months or years ahead. What we do talk a lot about is money. I still have a bit saved up from the job I just left, but I'm worried about how I'm going to support myself in future. Jack has almost no money and is understandably worried about supporting himself in the present. Even though this stresses him out, he doesn't want to look for a job right now. He is already an artist and a student, and he works very hard at both those things. Hopefully his student loan will come in soon, or his tax return, or an inheritance. The day I enter the casino for the first time, I feel a full body rush, despite the carpeted room smelling strongly of despair, a mix of chemical air freshener, adult diapers, and beer-battered fish and chips. The sound is a carnivalesque cacophony of digital music and bells, trilling celebratory arpeggios, dinging alerts, and the occasional clatter of coins hitting each other at a rapid rate. Growing up, I noticed that my grandpa's gambling obsession had been passed down to several of my younger relatives, like a torch in a relay race that no one ever seemed to win. For this reason, it doesn't feel entirely safe for me to be here, but that's exactly why I've come. After another argument with Jack, I'm in a breaking things mood. In this case, I'm breaking a rule, a promise I'd made to myself and once to my granny not to ever start gambling, just in case I'm unable to stop. At the end of a row of slot machines, I find one that only costs a nickel. A nickel is nothing, only a penny is worth less. I reach for my wallet to see if I have any nickels, and as it turns out, I have several. I sit down in the chair and slip a coin into the machine. A kindly white-haired man with a mustache appears on screen and welcomes me in a suave voice. He would like to take me jewelry shopping. Would I like to inspect the jewels and rings on offer? I don't understand how this game works, but I press the button and watch as the jewels mix and then resolve into an unmatching row. That's it. I drop another nickel into the machine. Same thing, then again, then again. On this fourth time, there's a match, and then I have all 4 nickels back. The old man, who looks a bit like Sean Connery, embarks on an extended monologue about how deserving I am of sparkly things. You are a jewel, my dear, he says. His eyes crinkle at the corners, and I feel for a moment as though he has gently touched me on the shoulder. I start again, wondering how long I can keep this going. After 10 minutes, I still have a handful of nickels, when the light on the top of the machine begins to spin and flash like the rooftop light on a police car. A fast-paced dinging occurs as the old man congratulates me in a booming voice. On screen, 3 diamond engagement rings are lined up perfectly. I don't know what that means, but then the money starts to pour from the machine. I look around, hoping someone will tell me what to do. A nearby woman grouchily points to a stack of plastic cups on a table, and I go to grab a few. Then I scoop the 500 nickels into the cups, feeling like a pirate or a thief. As I finish retrieving the last of the coins, my hands are dirty and black from the money. My face is flushed and the back of my head is tingling. A casino worker watches me from the elevated observation deck. He's dressed in a black suit and looks like an undertaker. I cash out immediately. 5 cents has turned into 25 bucks. I'm excited to tell Jack about my good luck. I want to treat us to something that will make our lives feel more luxurious. Maybe some pricey unseasonal flowers at the market, or better yet, I'll buy us a bougie cocktail in one of Halifax's many bars. I want to give Jack a celebratory night out, one where he doesn't have to worry about paying me back because we'll be spending money I didn't have to work for. Easy money, free money. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. I could hear the jingle jangling of the casino and the red light and oh my goodness, and the foreboding. Oh, thank you. That was great. It was really good. Next up, we have Jessica Westhead, who is the author of the novel Pulpy and Midge and the story collections Things Not to Do and also Sharks. Finalist for the Danuta Gleed Literary Award. Her last novel, Worry, was CBC Books Best Book of the Year and longlisted for CBC Canada Reads. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you so much, Emily. And thanks to Jen and Dorianne and Hannah and the rest of the lovely Brockton Writers Series folks. It's so great to be here with Nadia and Jane and Hollay and Becky. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. So I'm going to read a story that's part of a new collection I'm working on about the obliviousness of white privilege and the harm that well-intentioned white ladies can do. I'm writing from the perspective of characters who are white, cis, straight, and mostly middle-aged and middle class, like myself, and exploring their poorly disguised entitlement and racism in an effort to ridicule and condemn that behavior and the problem of centering whiteness. but the elements of racism are still there. So I wanted to mention that up front. In the story I'll be reading from, a self-absorbed middle-aged white mom is writing to a Black food blogger to tell her how much she likes her recipes. But just beneath the surface, she has a more selfish reason for sending the email. The story is titled, Gary, how does a contact form work? Do I just type in here and press send and that's it? Hi there. This isn't something I normally do. So please excuse me if I don't have the etiquette right. But I felt moved to write to you because something hilarious happened to me involving you and your talents. Haha, maybe hilarious isn't the right word. Serendipitous? Possibly. There's one word I'm sure of though, which is delicious. I'll stop being so mysterious. Here's what happened. I found your recipe for Caribbean style chickpea curry with rice and I loved it. So I wanted to reach out to you, Aaliyah. What a pretty name and so unique. And tell you that you are helping people. I wanted you to know that. You are shining a very bright light in a very dark time. Things have gotten so bad that I actually started browsing the self-tanners on well.ca last night, if you can believe it. Because of course I haven't been able to see my hairdresser to touch up my gray, and being inside so much is completely washing me out. It's awful. You're lucky you don't have to worry about that. So I'm jealous, but also thankful because your recipe was like a much needed dose of tropical sunshine. I've known how to make a basic curry for a while now. Dice some onions, throw them in a pan with some oil, shake some curry powder on top. After that though, I'm always looking for inspiration. Up until recently, I only ever searched for East Indian recipes. I am a big East Indian fan, but a few weeks ago, I had a real roti craving, a chickpea curry roti to be exact. It was already close to dinner time, so I proposed getting takeout, but my husband said that idea was tricky because he didn't want roti, not because of the taste, but because he's gluten-free. And of course, our son, Mickey, wouldn't touch anything on the menu. Yes, his name is Mickey. Don't get me started. My husband comes from a family of Disney fanatics, so I was under a lot of pressure there. But I didn't have any names I was particularly attached to, so I figured why not? And then I regretted it, but now it's too late. This is the endless challenge of navigating restaurant meals around the palate of a 9-year-old. Do you have kids? If you do, then I'm sure you'll understand how we always have to take Mickey's pickiness into account. So basically, my husband wanted to save money by not ordering takeout from more than one restaurant, which was understandable, but still frustrating. So I said to him, fine, Gary, I guess I'll never eat roti again until we all get vaccinated. And he said, fine, Vanessa, just get your damn roti then, which sounded like he was giving me permission to get the roti, and I didn't like that at all. My husband is always looking for ways to be economical because just like everyone else, we are trying to live on a budget, but because who knows what the future holds, right? Even with a vaccine on the horizon, there is still so much uncertainty. But of course, that uncertainty is also why I feel entitled to treat myself once in a while. But in that moment, I just became exhausted from it all. You know those moments when every little thing just grinds you down? So I said, forget it, Gary, I'll just make a freezer pizza, even though I really wanted a chickpea curry roti. So we had the freezer pizza because that's something everybody can agree on. And in the end, I wasn't even disappointed. Do you know why? Because while I was waiting for the pizza to cook, I searched my phone for chickpea curry roti recipes because I had secretly decided to be resourceful and make it myself. Just the inside part, not the outside part, because I think that would be too complicated. But I figured I could do a decent job with the filling if I found the right recipe. And yours was the second or third one that came up, and it got my attention because the photo of the finished dish looked so good. And you also suggested serving it with rice, which I hadn't even thought of. But what a great idea. And I clicked on it. And there you were. It was helpful that you included a photo of yourself so people know your recipe is authentic, because it's hard to tell otherwise. And your smile was so friendly and encouraging. And I was so relieved because I already had almost everything I needed in my pantry. Because if I didn't have something, I'd have to wait, because we had just stocked up on groceries. Not hoarded. Those people are terrible. So we wouldn't be shopping again for a while. The only thing I didn't have was a Scotch bonnet pepper, but I was fine to leave that out. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind spice. I'm as spicy as they come. Haha, not really. But if the spice is so hot that it masks the other flavors of the dish, it's like a waste to me. Your recipe also called for Jamaican curry powder, but I didn't have that, so I just used the regular curry powder. The next day I made your Caribbean style chickpea curry with rice for my dinner. Mickey and his dad ate hot dogs. And let me tell you, the results of my efforts were nothing less than restaurant quality, which is how my husband and I described home-cooked food that exceeds our usual standards. And we can actually close our eyes and imagine that a professional chef made it for us and a professional server served it to us. I miss going to restaurants. Anyway, I thought to myself, I need to tell this young woman what a positive impact she's had on my life. So here I am. I noticed that you're asking people who enjoyed your recipes to give them a star rating, but I can't figure out how to do that. Do I have to create an account? I don't like creating accounts. We're expected to create everything these days. But then I went to your About Me page and saw the option to email you via this contact form. So I thought I would do that instead because it's more personal. Quick suggestion. You might want to consider including a glossary of terms on your site to make it more user-friendly. I had to look up Scotch bonnet peppers and Jamaican curry powder, for instance. But I am no website expert. Technology and I are not BFFs. Haha. Here's another thing I wanted to tell you. I have become aware. I've read a number of enlightening books and articles recently, and the cumulative effect of reading those books and articles is that one morning, about a month ago, I woke up and felt as if a switch had been pulled in my life. My eyes had been opened to the harsh reality of the world around me and the rotten systems at work within it, and how those systems exclude people and they're so damaging. I blinked and looked around, and it was like, here is the system, and I'm part of it, and I didn't even know. A core-shaking realization, to say the least. As if living in the shadow of COVID-19 wasn't destabilizing enough. It was as if a voice was whispering in my ear, here's what you knew before, Vanessa, and all of it was wrong. This is what it felt like. It felt like I was living in the Matrix. I only saw that movie once, and I don't remember the details very well, but people frequently use it as an analogy for this kind of thing, and now I know why. My newly dawning understanding left nothing untouched by its rays. Gary and Mickey and I went to Magic Kingdom last summer with Gary's entire extended family, and against my better judgment, we all wore the ears and matching Disney Squad t-shirts with our names on them. It was a birthday celebration for Gary's mom, and she's a difficult personality, so I just went along with it. I'm telling you this because I have a confession to make. My favorite attraction was the Jungle Cruise ride. I loved it. It was so hot out, and I was so grateful to escape into the cool, soothing shade of the boat. I was tired and sweaty, and Mickey was overstimulated and whiny, and Gary had been getting on my nerves all day. But for those 7 blissfully untroubled minutes while I relaxed in that imitation safari barge, surrounded by all of Gary's sunburned relatives, I was happy. And our skipper was so clever with all of his puns. Gary and I laughed so hard. But we shouldn't have. And I know that now. Also, I wanted to ask your advice about something. The first time I made your Caribbean style chickpea curry with rice, it turned out perfectly, as I mentioned. But the second time I made it, the curry was bitter. This has happened to me with curry recipes before many times. And part of the reason why I was so excited about your recipe was because I thought I found the key to avoiding that bitterness forever. But it wasn't. Maybe you have never had this problem. Is there a secret you could let me in on? Some special trick that you learned for your mother or your grandmother that you could pass along? Don't be like those selfish panic buyers who stockpile the hand sanitizer and toilet paper, Aaliyah. We're all in this together. Maybe I should just give up now. But I don't want to. Maybe my spices are stale. I've been avoiding the bulk barn because it doesn't seem like the safest place to go these days, with everyone touching all of the scoops. Or maybe I should find a Caribbean supermarket and buy my spices there. I bought some chai tea at an East Indian supermarket once though, and it was underwhelming. Also, the cashier was a bit rude and said I shouldn't say East Indian anymore. And when I asked her why, her explanation didn't make any sense at all. What am I doing wrong? Please tell me. Okay, that's all. I'm really looking forward to your reply. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. You are a delight, and that was that was really great, and performed, and yeah, great. Thank you so much. So everyone, thank you for being here with us tonight. I hope you've all been thinking up questions as we've had our readers read for us. All of them really, really darn good tonight. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. So if you have if you have any questions, now would be the time to type them into the the comment field. Please note that we're only going to read questions for the Q&A that are respectful of our authors and their work, and that do not promote any sort of oppression. So we have a question here, I think. Oh no, this is another comment. So yes, I can start us off with a sample question I have if we don't have anybody yet. I'm just looking here and I don't think I have anything yet. So, so first we have recently, pandemic aside, or maybe including the pandemic, what is personally the most difficult part of your writing process, or the biggest hurdle that you have to get over to get into flow, or whatever it is, and how do you overcome it? Do we have any takers? Okay, Jessica, thank you so much.
So Emily, you're asking how you get back into the flow, how you sort of encourage yourself to get in that space for writing. This is me telling myself, because I have stopped doing this, but something I used to do that worked really well, and I haven't done it for a while, is I would sketch in my notebook. So I like to write ideas, first ideas by hand in an old-fashioned notebook. But sometimes I would just, I'm not very good. My daughter's very good at sketching things right from her head, but myself, I definitely have to look at something. So I would just maybe just have this, you know, container of pencils, pens, and I would just look at it and sketch it. Or sometimes I'll do that with a picture of people, and I'm, you know, do a badly drawn representation of them, but it's just for me. And I would find that that would sometimes get me in the flow, just really focusing on the drawing and not trying to make it anything in particular, just enjoying the actual pen to paper sketching.
That's fantastic, a corresponding form of art that is separate from what you do, but also generative. That's wonderful. Becky or Hollay or Jane, do you have any similar tactics?
I think for me, I mean, everything's been so overwhelming. So I have some pretty nasty, my particular form of obsessive compulsive disorder is called existential OCD. So I worry a lot about like death and mortality and really serious stuff like that. But I also have 4 kids. So when you have like, you know, my kind of death obsession weighing down on me, plus like 4 kids just kind of like sucking the life out of me simultaneously. I feel like I just do it now, or I'm never going to get to do it. So I don't give myself the luxury of writer's block. I just do it. Like I don't think about it. I don't overthink it. When I can squeeze in pockets of time, I just do it. So I'm not saying that, my mental illness helps me in this way, because it makes me a really anxious person, but it does mean that I'm pretty prolific.
That's a really great strategy where it's difficult. That's sort of led you to a strategy that works to overcome. That's really great. Becky, you were going to say something?
I've had an interesting writing experience this past year, because I decided that I would one time only read all of my journals. So that's been part of my creating, like writing this memoir. And I had boxes and boxes of them. I never want to see them again. But each day when I only have 3 left, and they're small ones. So I'm almost finished, and I'm almost finished the book, but it's been really interesting. And it's helped me to lead me into my writing each day, to do a little bit of reading of these old words of mine, and to just see how essential writing has always been for me, even when what I'm writing is kind of garbage. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's an important part of my life. And that's just kind of helped to remind me of that, I guess. That doesn't have to be good, I guess, what you're writing. It's just something to do. Yeah. Wow.
I guess journals would be a natural form of research if you're writing memoir. I guess that's that is hitting the stacks. Yeah. Wow. Jane, do you have any tactics to get back into it when you're feeling the slump?
Feeling the slump? I never feel the slump. No. No, all I do is I make a habit of it every day. Sit down and do it, whether you want to or not. As far as the pandemic goes, if you're an introvert, and I'm such an introvert, I can't say I've barely noticed the pandemic, but it hasn't changed that much. So sitting in a room all day and working, it's no worse than it was before. It's no better than it was before. It's just a question of forming the habit of sitting down and doing it. And if you don't produce anything that day, well, then try again the next day and keep chipping away. And that's the only thing I can say. No special tactics, nothing at all. Just dogged perseverance. I don't know what else there is.
Nadia, since you're still here with us, I can see. Do you want to fire over any hot tips that you use for?
I find that I've been doing other activities, like and what I mean by that is just doing things I guess are writing adjacent, like cleaning is like, it just gets my mind I'll listen to an audiobook and I'll clean, and then it just I'm still in that literary headspace, but I'm not in front of the writing. I also journal as well, but yeah, I find that I work well with deadlines, and I work kind of well when it's close to the deadline, and I'm trying to work on that, because I think can be very stressful to work that way always at that point. But one other activity that I've been doing is the Pomodoro Technique, which I'll set a timer and just break up the task and work for 25 minutes. And that helps me because psychologically I can deal better with, I need to sit down for 25 minutes and do this, and then get a break in 5, as opposed to knowing I have to sit down for 3 hours and work on it straight. So yeah, I just try different things. I just change things up.
Yeah, that's great. These are all really great techniques. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. It has been differently challenging for all of us, but these are certainly helpful tips. Here's a question from one of our viewers tonight. How challenging was that, Jessica specifically, as a white writer? It must have been so challenging to speak those words out loud.
Thank you so much, Allison. So my stories, my short stories are always made up of things that sort of filter in the world around me. And I always get some inspiration, usually from the most embarrassing and often shameful parts of myself. So this story and the stories in the collection grew out of my own very late awakening to the reality of white supremacy, which has, of course, existed forever. I think I wanted to map my own journey of that growing awareness. And I thought I would use characters who lack any self-awareness, because that's my favorite kind of character to write. And it's a way to find the humor. And it's a tricky balancing act, though, because it's very important to me to be ridiculing the behavior, but absolutely not making light of the reality of racism. My idea with the collection is to sort of call in white readers instead of calling them out. And I've also been seeking feedback from racialized writer friends who have been so helpful and encouraging, and their support and excitement about the collection has been so heartening. So yeah, this is the second story I've ever shared, and it is challenging, I guess, but I'm really gratified from the response, and I think it's probably good that it's challenging. And I think Allison also asked, probably for all of us, I've been playing around with personal essays and feel burdened by the sense of sharing too much, or maybe sharing what people don't care about. I think you just have to, for myself, to answer that, I think you just have to share what you care about, first of all, and that will come through and resonate with your readers. I think if you care deeply about something, it will come through in your writing. Thank
I think
you.
that's something that probably at least Hollay and Becky will also, as memoirists, they will also be able to speak to too. How do you get over sharing, or what you feel like might be oversharing? What is your formula for knowing when it's actually okay to put it down on paper, or what's the cutoff point?
I don't want to cut back again or I don't have a cutoff point. I don't believe in oversharing, right? Like I just say everything. As the guy at the pool who I told, I just say what I find interesting. And as Jessica said, my book is a series of personal essays on mixed race identity and mental illness. And my main fear was what my family would think, not what anybody else would think. And my family didn't read the book anyways because they're embarrassed. So I guess, yay, crisis averted. So yeah, I really think that really just put out what you want out there, and then you can edit and refine after. I definitely wrote chapters and sections that didn't end up getting put in at all, because it was just, once I wrote it out, I was like, no, we're not sharing that. But I think if you write it all out, you'll have a better idea of understanding what you wanted and what you want out.
Yeah, I try to do that too. I try to put everything in, and then you can always take it out before other people see it. Also, it's really interesting to see the parts that you are self-censoring. Well, for me anyway, the parts that I self-censor around are usually the important parts. So once I recognize that I'm feeling challenged by telling the truth in a certain area, I know that that's like a hot point for me, and it might be an important part for readers too. And sometimes it's weird, the impulse I have to sort of gloss over something, either with humor or by making it like more lyrical or romantic than it was, I guess, I think it's important to challenge, if you're writing nonfiction, to challenge yourself to be as truthful as possible, because even if it's just for yourself, that's what we're doing. We're trying to get to the bottom of something. And you have to start by being honest with yourself, and then be as honest as you feel comfortable being with others as well. And yeah, writing, I noticed that I haven't written too much about other people. That's the hard part. Writing about others is you have to be to really look at what your motivation is for writing about others, and do it with a very generous hand if you can, I guess.
A very good way to put it. Thank you. All right, so I don't see any other questions immediately in our chat. So I think we're going to go to our good old Brockton chestnut, which is asking you all to suggest a book that you've read recently that you think we should all read, that you feel really passionate about, or that really stayed with you, or that you really even hated and stayed with you, but you want us to all read it just to commiserate too. That's okay as well.
Yeah, I'm just finishing up reading a book by George Saunders, who is one of my absolute favorite writers. And it's a writing course. It's a distillation of the writing course that he gives at Syracuse University. And it's marvelous. He takes 7 Russian short stories, and he breaks them down chapter by chapter and shows you how they work, how the authors, how the writers who wrote them made them work. And with each separate story, he picks out some special aspect that he thinks you need to learn. But he's so gentle about it, and so humorous, and so encouraging. He makes you feel like $1,000,000, even while he's pointing out your flaws. You're thinking, yes, I know, I can fix it, George, I'll fix it for you. And it's the most wonderful, encouraging book, not just for writers. I would recommend it for any writer, but also for readers. Just read people who enjoy reading, because he just shows you how everything works. And then you feel that you yourself will in future maybe be able to make things work better than you have. It's wonderful. I recommend it. It's called A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. And it's just beautiful. I highly, highly recommend it. So that's my.
George Saunders, A Swim in a Pond in the Rain.
In the Rain.
Thank
yeah.
you.
What I'm working on right now is a fragmented memoir. It's a memoir in stories. So I've been reading a lot of essay collections and other memoirs that are built in pieces. And 2 that I love. One is Joanne Beard. She has 2 essay collections, but the one I just read is called Festival Days. And it's a strange hybrid of fiction and nonfiction, which is also something I'm fascinated with. It's mostly essays, but then there's also one short story, and the short story reads like nonfiction, and the nonfiction reads like fiction. And it's really fascinating book. And then there's a Canadian Israeli writer, Ayelet Zavari's The Art of Leaving is a favorite fragmented sort of essayistic memoir that's really wonderful, and I go back to it a lot and look at what she's doing and how she did it. I recommend it.
All right, that's Joanne Beard, Festival Days, and Ayelet Zavari's The Art of Leaving. Thank you, Becky.
I'll jump in because I took a course with Ayelet last year in CNF, which was amazing. So I would add a book that I've been reading books that have been on kind of highly recommended lists. So I mentioned Sula by Toni Morrison, also Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. The one that also jumps out to me is Breathe. Oh gosh, it just slipped my mind. Breathe, I Memory. It's by Edwidge Danticat, Breathe Eyes Memory. Breath Eyes Memory, Breath Eyes Memory by Edwidge Danticat. And it was Edwidge's first novel, and she wrote it at the age of 24. It's my first time reading her novel. I did meet Edwidge twice, and I'm trying to imagine, because she's very highly respected educator and author, but I try to imagine her at that age, at 24, and all the different ways she wove in her culture and her traditions. And it was just a very well written novel. And I see some of the things that, areas like maybe things she might have grown and able, things that she could do better later on. But I think it was a great first novel. So that's my contribution.
Okay, so Edwidge Danticat, Breath, Eyes, Memory. Thank you, Nadia.
Can I cheat and say a few? One that I just finished. I love thrillers, but I like sort of something deeper than a woman discovers that she was her ex sister that she never met has come back to kill her and her family, that kind of thing. Like that, I've read a lot of those, and I'm looking for more. And I just finished reading Leave the World Behind by Rumen Alam. It's just terrifying. It's really bleak, but there's a tiny bit of hope. And it's about a middle-class white family that rents a fancy country house for a holiday week away from New York City. And they're enjoying themselves and sort of doing their things. And then in the middle of their week, in the middle of the night, there's a knock on the door, and it's the rich Black family that actually owns the home. And they're coming because they're like, is it okay that we come and stay in our own home? We'll pay you extra money. But something horrible has happened in the city. There's been a blackout. We don't really know what's going on. And, let us in. It's what ensues after that. And it's the two families that are in this house, and you don't actually know what's happening. And it's just, it's really wonderful. And it's the first book in a long time the first thriller that I could not put down. And I was just like, get away from me, family. I'm trying to read. And I haven't had that feeling in a while. So I love my family very much, but I really love that book a lot. And I'm almost finished. And I'm loving so much romantic comedy. I don't read a lot of romantic comedies, but I love Farah Heron's writing. It's called Accidentally Engaged. And I think Farah's tagline about herself is she loves writing brown people who fall like ridiculously in love. And it's just, her writing is just so immersive and compelling and light, but deep at the same time, and just so joyful to read. And I just keep opening the pages, and I want to always have a beer because her characters like drink beer and eat bread, and it's just super fun. So those are just two very different, very different stories, but equally enjoyable.
Great. Okay, so that's The Unputdownable Leave the World Behind by Ruman Alam and Accidentally Engaged by Farah Heron. Thank you. Okay, Hollay, anything you can suggest for us?
Yeah, definitely. I just last year I read Through the Sad Woods, Our Corpses Will Hang by Eva Flamari. It's published by Grenica Edition a couple of years ago. Again, that's Through the Sad Woods, Our Corpses Will Hang, which is just this insanely good title. And it's about an Iranian woman born during the revolution, and she's on trial for the murder of her mother. So the whole book takes place there. It's about her mental health. Is she in a position to be in trial for this? It's been translated into German and optioned for a film, and I just think it would be gorgeous. And then there's also just like an older favorite of mine, which is Brutal Imagination by Cornelius Eady, which is a collection of poetry. The first section is about the, sorry, my 3-year-old's like a train through here. It's about the murder with Susan Smith, how she said that this imaginary Black man stole her car and killed her 2 children, but it was really her. But he writes from the perspective of the imagined Black man who never existed. That's the first part of the book. And then the second part kind of spins off of racial injustice. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So that's Brutal Imagination by Cornelius Eady. It's poems. And then finally, Stella's Carpet by Lucy Black, which was just published this year by Now or Never, and it explores intergenerational trauma from World War II, and it's really just breathtaking.
Okay, I got Cornelius Eady, Brutal Imagination, Ava Farmeri, Through the Sad Woods Our Corpses Will Hang. Yeah, what a title. And Lucy Black. And what was the title of Lucy Black?
That was Stella's Carpet.
Stella's Carpet. Thank you so much. Wow. So we all have a gigantic TBR for our to be read list.
I think you muted yourself, Emily.
Sorry. Thank you so much, everyone, for that. Do we have any more questions from our viewers? And if not, I think it's just about time for us to wrap up.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today, and for all of our audience for participating in the chat. I had a great time. I laughed, I contemplated, I felt uncomfortable. It was great. We hope that you'll all join us next time. It's going to be kind of an odd anniversary because it will be the anniversary of the last time we were in person. But we will still be online. March 9th, 2022. We will have Rebecca Salazar, Grace Lau, Brad Fraser, and James Lee Lord Park reading for us. And our guest speaker, Emmy Nordstrom Higdon, a literary agent with Westwood Creative Artists. So it's going to be great. Mark your calendars, March 9th. Like and subscribe this video, subscribe to our channel, please, and then you'll get notified about it. Thank you very much, everybody.